Okay guys, check this out. This is a this is a really bad cast iron cook job. I actually made scrambled eggs this morning, and I used this pan purposely. Now the reason I use this pan intentionally is because it does just that. It sticks the eggs. And I've been wanting to do a video for a while to show you how if you have a cast iron pan, and anyone who uses cast iron regularly, you have your favorite pans for different things. As you learn with your cast iron, some cast iron do well with one type of food item, where another cast iron will not do as well with the other food item. And it has to do a lot with the pores in the cast iron, the type of cast that it was made in. I have some really porous cast iron. I do not like it, and that happens to be this skillet right here. It does good for some things. It does not do well for eggs at all. But there are a lot of people, a lot of newbies with cast iron that they expect that once they season their cast that everything should just slide off, just like Teflon, you know, the big deal with Teflon. And that's not always the case, and they can become discouraged when they get a situation like I just showed you, where something sticks very badly to your cast. Now, of course, just like with many things in life, cast iron is a sacred cow, and there are those that swear you can't use soap and water on your cast iron, or you can't use soap on your cast iron. I always use soap on my cast iron. That you have to put your iron on a heat source to dry it. I do, simply because I have that heat source going on, but lots of times in the summer I don't. I just towel dry it and then hang it up to dry, and it's fine. But the one thing that is definitely agreed upon, I think, in the vast array of cast iron knowledge is you want to keep your seasoning intact when you have a situation where something actually sticks very badly to your cast. Now, and I use this pan because I wanted to demonstrate how you really have to flake at this to get this off, okay? And you don't want to do that. And even if you put this in water and soak it, you are still going to have to use a lot of elbow grease, and usually something like steel wool or an SOS or a Scotch-Brite pad, a sponge with a scrubby to get it off. And you just don't want to do that. So what I do when I accidentally grab this pan and cook my eggs in it, or have had other situations that things have stuck, I will put this up here in my warming oven, and I will just leave it. It can take as little as, a half a day to as long as a day. And I'm going to show you what happens once I've let this sit in here and dry out. All right, so this is the next day. I had my pan in the warming oven all night. Now, here's the deal though. My heat did fluctuate, which meant that it probably should be in there a little bit longer, but there are stages of where the egg has dried against the pan that I want you to be able to see. You'll see that I've got these scrapings right here because I was testing it to see where we were at. But what I want you to see, and I can't wait for this to dry completely because I've got to get on with my day and I wanted to get this video out. You can see where the egg, just being in a gentle heat, has pulled away from the pan. And I've got my wood spatula, and it's just going to drop off. I mean, it's literally just dry, and it just drops off. Now, the part that obviously would take longer is down here on the floor of the pan. But it still comes off a whole lot easier than if you make this mistake with your cast iron and get something stuck that you don't want stuck. You see how it just flakes off. If I left it in there for another hour or so, the whole pan, I mean, I'm not putting any pressure on it. I'm just using the edge of this. The reason I'm showing this is because sometimes different cast irons we use will not have that nice stick-free finish. Maybe, again, the pores of the cast iron or whatever, and if you've got a nice seasoning on it and you don't want to ruin the seasoning by soaking it, again, which I have found just when that happens, it still takes a lot of energy to get the stuff that's stuck to the bottom off of it, and then you start to lose some of your seasoning. So what would you do though, the person do that doesn't have a wood stove? Because a lot of you out there don't have a wood stove. There are ways to do this where you are not costing yourself additional energy. And when I say energy, you're not having to turn your oven on needlessly. If you have an older propane stove and you have a pilot light, you could set your pan on top of that pilot light overnight. It may take a little bit longer because the heat is not distributed evenly, but that will keep your pan warm. I know a lot of stoves today do not have pilot lights, so you don't have that option. But if you have a gas stove, and on some electrics, usually they're gas, there will be an exhaust on the back of the stove that you could slide your pan towards. If you're baking in your oven, or if you've got something going on in your oven, you could put your pan on top of the stovetop and just let that exhaust heat that pan up. The other thing, like my mom has an electric stove, and the top of her stove, when she's baking in it, still gets pretty warm. So you could, if you're baking in your electric stove, you could just set your pan on top. If your top gets warm enough to where when you put your hand on it, it's a little uncomfortable, then you know that you're going to have enough heat to do that with. But the drawback is obviously your electric stove or gas stove isn't going to go round the clock. But what we hope is that this isn't something that you have to do often. So if there is that occasion where you have this mess with your cast iron and you want a nice non-aggressive release to free that stuff from the cast iron itself, you do have the option, of course, of just putting your cast iron into your oven on a very low heat for the day, and it should come off without a problem. So it really, I mean, this stuff, doing it this way, the stuff just flakes off. You don't have to take abrasive rags or scrubbies to it. So that's my tip with a cast iron pan when you think you've destroyed it. Eggs are usually the only thing that really do it really bad. Sometimes a bread dough will depend. Again, it depends on your pores. This cast iron that I used, I have a love and hate relationship with it because I've never liked it. But it's one of those ones where I've had it, and I have other good ones that I really like. And this one comes into use in its own time, or at its own times. But there are things I just won't cook in it because of the size of the pores on it. I've got a couple other cast irons that came with this, that came as a kit, and I don't like them. I will use them, but I've had to learn over time what they like. And if I put something in it that they don't like, then I end up not liking it. So, all right, that's it for today. I hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk soon. God bless.